presenters. Welcome, Z and Markenya.
Awesome. Good evening. I'm sorry, good afternoon. I'm rushing the day. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here with us for part two. I am still in vacay mode, hence the socks hat, you know. Hope to get to another game before we officially start back. But so glad that you all were able to take the time to join us today as we recap things that you already know, but hope to give you just a different perspective and some key reminders on how to just take care of yourself, honestly, as we launch into a new year, which might mirror 1920, at least the beginning of 1920 school year. And so we just want to be of a voice of echo and reminder and all of those good things to just help us stay centered this school year. So thank you for joining us today, and I'll turn it over to Z for a quick introduction, and we'll share our screens and get into the conversation, the dialogue, the webinar on today. Z.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. As Dr. Markenya said, we are just really excited to do a part two of this presentation. Don't forget to breathe. You know, I had to remind myself to breathe today as well. You know, we're breathing all the time, but are we intentional about the breath that we're taking? So I'm excited. I can't wait to just go through this. I'm excited to hear from you all, to interact and to see what's working, what's not working, and to make these are things you all already know. It's just a matter of making sure it stays at the forefront and not in the back of your head. All right, so with that, we will go ahead and begin, and let's see how this flows. Do not forget to breathe. Here we go.
All right. You all should be able to see my screen.
Yep, looks good. If you want to put it in slideshow mode.
Yes.
There we go. We're
Here
full
we
screen.
go.
Thank you.
All right. Awesome. All right. As Z and I both mentioned, don't forget to breathe. And breathe stands for boundaries, reflect or reflection, evaluate, acknowledge, thankfulness, hope, and energize. So these are all the things that hopefully this year we are cognizant of, and that we will keep at the forefront of our days and our weeks and our months as we enter into the year. And I am Dr. Markenya Williams, and my partner, Nzingha Z. Martin. I'm so happy to have her join us today. So just quick objectives, recap. If you were here for part one, I believe that was the end of May. Similar objectives, same objectives. We would like to explore the importance of self-awareness and self-prioritization. That is going to be a huge focus on today. Discuss briefly some of the current challenges that educators are facing. Identify root causes of stress and preventative measures, right? Preventative measures. One quote that I saw on Twitter a few years ago, and I can't even take credit for it, but it said, if you can predict it, you can prevent it, right? So there's some preventative things that we can do, knowing possibly, you know, where we're headed this school year. And so we would like to identify some of those preventative measures, reflect on practices, processes, and trauma that perhaps we have, you know, forgot to explore, and they're surfacing in perhaps obvious ways now. But I think we spend a lot of time focus on children and their ACEs and their trauma. And sometimes us as adults, we have not processed those things too, and have not sought out the proper channels of help that can help us move beyond those points. And then to equip all of us with some strategies and some techniques on breathing. So these are our objectives at large. 50 minutes go by really, really quickly. So we would try to get to as much as we can, but knowing that our primary focus is to really help all of us become more self-aware and to have that self-prioritization piece. All right, so this is a poem that we found yesterday from the Happy Project. You all, I did not even know until yesterday that August is Happiness Month. I said, oh, wow, all these Augusts that I have had that I didn't even know that was Happiness Month. August 8th is Happy Day. And so this is one of their poems from the website, You Matter. I thought it was phenomenal, just reading it, and it was very encouraging. And so we wanted to share it with you all. And to, if you didn't know, August is Happiness Month. So every day we should spend a little bit of time making ourselves happy, however that looks, no judgment here. But, in just thinking about where we are, just globally, nationally, in the states that we live in. Z is in Pennsylvania. We're here, and most of us are probably here from Illinois. There's a lot of energy, a lot of negativity, but we all matter. We all are somebody's, lifeline of some sort. Perhaps many people, especially the educators, many people are dependent upon us, and so we have to breathe. Our story matters. Our journeys, wherever we are in our careers. Perhaps there's some new leaders in the room, new teachers in the room. Some have shifted and pivoted into different roles over the summer. At the end of the day, we matter, right? But we also have to be cognizant that all the people that need us and want us, and the emails that come 2-3 in the morning, some I send, right? But to different people that I'm connected to on my team. But our jobs, you all, will be posted before our obituaries are written. And that is a fact, right? Because the communities that we serve, the beat has to go on. But we really want to embark upon this year knowing that we matter. So therefore, we have to take time for that self-prioritization piece. Z, did you want to add to it? I know I've said a lot so far, but definitely want to give you space to add to all that was just shared.
Oh, no, you nailed it. You nailed it. Keep on going.
Awesome. All right, so I gave a brief introduction of who I am title-wise, but I've had an expansive career, and I'm probably just in the middle of it, but I have spent many, many years in K-12. I am now on the higher ed side as assistant professor at Harper College, but I've served in many roles when I was in the K-12 space. Teacher's assistant is actually how I entered the role. I've worked in nonprofit, public schools. I'm from the South Side of Chicago. Again, go Sox. I have served as an administrator. I have been in many spots and many places, and there are times I did not breathe, right? And it was overwhelming, and I've had to pull back. I've had to get off of committees. I've had to not join teams. I've had to not go to meetings just to get recentered and refocused. So this topic is near and dear to me. And even at the stage of my career that I am now, in another transitional sort of space, getting adapted to higher ed is a transition. But I am grateful for just being connected to the field. Now I have the opportunity of preparing pre-service teachers, so engaging with them and letting them know the scope of 21st century classrooms, right? Coming into the profession at the beginning of the 21st century and knowing the elements of the 20th century that we still were sort of navigating. Now we are very much in a high stakes environment all the time, and so being able now to touch our pre-service teachers and or perhaps help them navigate into a different profession if they don't think they have the wherewithal to endure, right? So that's something that I'm very passionate about. I still do consultant work for many coaches. I coach administrators, teachers, all of that good stuff. And so I'm so honored to be here with you all on today.
Hi, all. That was a great intro, Dr. Markenya. I am Nzingha. I go by Z. I like to tell people that I'm a life, leisure, and work strategist. Those are the things that are important to me, making sure that I live life fully because I only get one, and making sure that I enjoy and be intentional about all aspects of my being, mind, body, and spirit. And I love work, believe it or not. I actually love working so much that I decided to pursue a PhD in industrial and organizational psychology. So I just have a passion of studying people in the workplace, anything organizational development, leadership, culture, training and facilitation. That is me. I'm also a nonprofit founder, ICF coach, and all of that other good stuff. But hopefully you scroll down a little bit and you saw that I am a mother of 6. Yes, you saw correctly. I am a mother of 6. I have 2 singletons and 2 sets of twins. So I know what it's like to have a full-time job, to have a business, to have a nonprofit, and to also integrate both home life, work life, and just deal with the cares of this world. So I'm really excited to just to come to you to share my knowledge and experience and the things that I have learned throughout the years to help navigate troubled waters. This is something that Dr. Markenya is good at addressing, navigating troubled waters. So with that, we'll continue to go. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Z, for that overview of your life and all the things that, causes you to have to pause and breathe. Like you said, being a mother of 6 alone, I don't have biological children, but I've had many children come in and out of my home. But so I would imagine that this is a topic that you are keeping at the forefront of all of your extensions of your life as well.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, Z is going to lead us through a quick exercise to sort of open up the space. So I'll do my part. I hope the sound is sharing. Can you all hear that? Can you all hear the music or no?
No, I'm not hearing it. You may need to reshare and make sure to check computer audio.
All right.
There should be a little checkbox for share computer sound.
Yep, that was not checked. All right.
There you go.
Here we go.
All right. So we're going to take some time, and maybe you're ending your day, work day, but I want us to be intentional. If you can, I would like you to close your eyes, if possible. I would like you to just relax. Hopefully work is finished. You left work at work, and you're just present. I'd like you to inhale through your nose and exhale through your mouth. Inhale through your nose and exhale. You can focus on one thing that makes you feel comfortable and relaxed. It could be a vacation on a beach. I don't know, whatever it is. It could be hiking or nature. I just want you to be very intentional and take about 15 seconds in quiet silence and work on your breathing. Inhale and exhale. Be intentional about Breathing in and out. Do a countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, participants, I hope that you are here with us and not over there. Don't worry about what you need to cook for dinner, about anything concerning work. I would like you all to just be present this afternoon. With that said, we can
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Z, for leading us through that exercise. Thank you so much. And you all will do that a few times. We hope to do it a few times throughout the presentation as time allows, but definitely, we want to give you all practical strategies. That was a YouTube clip. I think that music can go for 11 hours, right? So there's so many free resources to use. I know I had to shift how I fall asleep at night. I used to fall asleep with various sort of random channels on, which I noticed started interrupting my sleep. And so I had to shift into, a more calmer atmosphere or things that would actually nurture my inner being versus, the random Martin and whatever else is rolling at 2, 3 in the morning, on just the average channel. And so YouTube, you all, many of us have smart TVs, I would imagine, or Roku's or Apple TVs, some extension where we can stream. But YouTube have a plethora of just relaxing music, perhaps that might help even as you sleep. So just wanted to add that tidbit because that is, all that we were playing in the background was a clip from YouTube. So we sort of did the intros as far as, who's here, who's in the space, what school you're at, position, and all of that. So we kind of just want to skip to question number 4. Would you rather? I love would you rather questions. It's a way for us just to sort of icebreaker, engage with you all, clear the air a little bit. So the would you rather question today is, would you rather have 2 planning periods per day? So I know this probably is more applicable to the teachers in this space, or have an assistant in your classroom for 1 hour every day. So even our administrators, if you can go back into those teaching days, would you have preferred perhaps to have those 2 planning periods a day, or perhaps having an assistant, but you only get that assistant for 1 hour a day? So we'll take about 30 seconds just to engage. So you can just simply put A or B. If you want to write out what the answer is, that's fine. But if you just want to answer by saying A or B, that will be great. And perhaps maybe a brief why, that will be fine too. But thank you all for just engaging with us for a few moments on this would you rather, a hypothetical question of things that we may never get, but would love to have. So, Anne, I'm going to try to just read a few. Anne said assistant for an hour. Christine said she would, I'm sorry, Anne, yes, Christine would also like the assistant. Matt said he would love the 2 planning periods. Let's see, some more answers maybe coming in momentarily. Having someone to collaborate with can be very, very helpful. Thank you, Jeanette, or Janet. I'm not sure how you pronounce it. I hope I said it correctly. I think for me, I would, well, the music is still playing. I'm so sorry. I think for me, I would like the 2 planning periods a day. I've worked in classrooms with assistants, which is great. But sometimes it's hard, can be working with team members. It can be, depending on where they are in their career and their space they're in. So for me, I would like the 2 planning periods a day versus the 1 hour support. So I don't know, Z, if you were in our shoes, which one do you think you would prefer?
I maybe I like
I think you're muted now.
okay. Can you hear me now?
Yep, Z, we can hear you. I think Markenya might have muted her speakers.
Oh, okay, okay, no problem.
Trying to hide the music.
Oh, okay. So I believe, hopefully I'm saying your name
I
correctly.
still can't hear you. Is it just me? Arlen, can you hear?
Yeah, we can. Yep, Markenya, we can hear her. I think you've muted your speakers.
Okay.
There you go. Are you back, Markenya?
Yes, I can hear you all. Can you all hear me?
Perfect, we can.
Okay.
Yeah, these things happen, no worries. So I loved Janet's response. Having someone to collaborate with can be very helpful. So as long as I have time and that collaboration, I love teams. I love people. So of course I'm gonna pick that collaboration piece of having someone with me. If I could get both, A and B would be the best. But yeah, so thanks.
Absolutely. Yes. And Stephen also referenced the collaboration piece. Trisha, she sort of went the way I went, the 2 planning periods. So thank you all for those that were able to engage in the would you rather question. All right. So let's get into the presentation. Like we said, the time goes by really, really fast. So always, trying to start with our why. I know I've sort of expressed why this topic is important to me a little earlier in the presentation. Z also shared, why, this topic matters to her as well. So we just want to ask you all the same question, why did you decide to join us today, or even perhaps watch the replay of this webinar? What brought you to a conversation, a topic such as this voluntarily? This is all voluntarily. So why? What's your why? What do you anticipate this upcoming school year? Perhaps maybe you work through the summer. If you're admin, you may have not had a lot of time to breathe. So what's your why? Why did you decide to join us today? Please feel free to drop some of your answers in the chat, and we'll get through as many as we can before we continue with the presentation.
So maybe while we're waiting, Dr. Markenya, I could, I think I mentioned my why earlier, right? I like doing what I do because of that I love to serve. I love to help. I want to be the change I want to see. It starts with me. And I'm looking at Anne as a leader. I need to know how to breathe and relax. I also need to set that example of self-care for others. Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, it starts with us. Refrain my mindset to focus on the positive. Excellent. Yeah.
Awesome. And you all could feel free to, even while the presentation is going on, to continue to answer that question, and or after the presentation, what's your why? Why is it why do you prioritize breathing, and setting those boundaries and reflection and evaluating and all of the other words that represent breathe in our from our perspective. So that's a question I think that we're going to have to ask ourselves as the year progresses. I think I am going to prioritize breathing. That's an acronym, but doing the things that the acronym stands for a lot more this upcoming year. Matt is expressed. Thank you for your transparency, Matt. he's been running tired the last 2 years. He transitioned into administration. So he thought this was a good PD topic to add on, and also setting appropriate boundaries so that he could be a better father, husband, and educator, and administrator that his staff deserves. So thank you, Matt, for your transparency and vulnerability. And there are other ones coming in, and perhaps we can circle back to them a little later. I know Z is probably more cognizant of the chat box than I am, so there'll be some interaction with you all in multiple ways. But thank you all for being transparent and vulnerable, and we hope that we can give you all, in the short time that we have, some of those things that you were looking for since you joined this webinar.
Mm-hmm. Wow. All right, I can't ignore this. I have to read this. Stephen said, I am always on the lookout for tips, ideas, and strategies to share with faculty. They have been under great emotional pressure over the last couple of years, and I am trying to use my leadership role as a superintendent to create paths for stress reduction rather than administration being the cause of stress.
Wow.
Being that change that you want to see. That's awesome. That is awesome. And I love that because it brings us into this whole wellness wheel. And I'm sure most of you all are aware of this. There are different types of wellness wheels, but I like this because for me, this gets the whole picture. Starting with the emotional side of things, right? When we are stressed, it affects our emotions. Look at the occupational side of things. When your work is out of sync, it affects everything. It affects your home life. When your home life is out of order, it affects your work life. So I'm sure you all are familiar with all of this. So there's the emotional, occupational, intellectual, environmental, spiritual, physical, and social. And for me, I use this. I have it on my desk here. And I use it as a tool to check in regularly. Okay, how am I doing emotionally? Am I aware of what's going on emotionally and the season that I'm in? How am I physically? How am I spiritually? So this may be used as a tool to kind of check in, whether you could use it for yourself. I even use it at home for my children as well. The whole occupational, again, that will be school, right? Because they don't work. They should be working, but well, they work in the house. But so this is a good check, to look at your personal wellness, and to make sure that you are well, because you don't want to be broken at school or at work. So it's very important to just always check in. Where am I on a scale of 1 to 10 emotionally? How am I feeling spiritually? Is my environment overstimulating? So it's very important to check out that personal wellness wheel. So that might be a tool that you could put in your classroom, you could have at your desk, just to remind yourself or even your staff members, okay, let's do a check-in. This might be a good tool even in the beginning of a meeting. Let's do a check-in. How is everyone emotionally today? And for me, that shows that you care. And it's not just, let's just do tasks. Let's just check in. So I love this as a tool to use as well. A personal wellness tool. Okay, so we can continue.
Absolutely. Thank you for that overview. And I was just rereading some of the things on the wellness wheel, and you referenced about not wanting to be broken, right? And typically as humans, we're not fragile in all the areas at once, right? It could be this month emotional, next month it could be physical, and sometimes it is perhaps an overlap, but when and the A for breathe, or in our acronym for breathe, does represent acknowledge. And so sometimes just acknowledging that, okay, I am not at my best today. When I was an administrator, contrary to most, I did encourage staff to use their mental health days if needed, right? Versus you come into the building and perhaps upsetting children or saying something wrong, right? Or doing the wrong thing because you're off balance. I would rather have to find a sub, even if I have to go in and sub, than for some harm to be done, right? Because you're not well at that moment. And so those are growth areas that sometimes if you were not perhaps raised in environments, I was not raised in a household that did these type of check-ins, but as an adult, learning how to navigate all the things that make up who I am, and understanding that we are in this business of children. So we have to be cautious of, how we are balanced or out of balance, and the things that we could do that could really, harm children. We could say things that are just not appropriate, just because we're not having a good moment, or we're not functioning well. So just wanted to just highlight that piece as well. So COVID realities, right? And we won't spend a lot of time on this. In the first part of this, we did dive into this a little bit more, but part of that acknowledgement piece is that we're still navigating COVID, you all. Yes, a lot of the restrictions have been lifted, but over the summer, I even caught COVID, right? So it's still here, and there's still the periods of quarantine and isolation that we will have to engage in just because we're, in community. And so don't want to ignore those facts, right? And there are people that have left the profession, will perhaps even leave the profession this year just because of all the transitions and the fluidity of perhaps closing some classrooms, putting kids on remote, working with families. There's still a bus driver shortage here, in Illinois. So there's a lot of things that, although we're trying to get beyond the pandemic, there's still some things that exist. And so this is just a data set that 3 in 10 NEA members, so national, I forget what NEA stands for, but these are educators in the profession. A range of them said that they're more likely to leave the profession earlier than planned, just because of the pandemic. So this is where we are. I don't know if another poll was taken beyond. I believe this data is from perhaps March of this year, and I don't know where we're set at now, 6 months or so later, but these are the numbers. So this is a reality. And so when we think about breathing, knowing that shortages, for the administrators in the building, scheduling, right, having to get people to fill in, just because of us still navigating COVID, on top of the other things that just come with being around children, being around people in high volume. So just wanted to highlight that, to acknowledge that we are still here. And so this is a quote sort of expediting us through that Oprah Winfrey said, to let go and breathe, right? Remind yourself that this very moment is the only one you have for sure. And I think COVID really amplified at least that for me, just seeing the amount of deaths and sickness just at rapid rates. So now I treasure people far more than things, right? I've never been sort of a materialistic person, but understanding and placing value on relationships, on moments, right? Because we don't know what the next moment might entail. So appreciate this quote by Oprah Winfrey. So challenges, right? We spoke about some of the challenges, the COVID challenges, of course, and then there are other challenges that just occur in life. And so you all know what you are challenging at this moment, the life realities. Again, we spend a lot of time supporting children through trauma, supporting the families that we serve through trauma. Sometimes we have to, as adults, perhaps unpack the layers of our own trauma in order to breathe, to have that capacity to handle more. There's certain environments that are triggering that we may not should engage in, but if we are not having sort of that self-check and aware of environments and spaces, perhaps even people that can lead us into areas that are not productive or safe, then we have to be aware of that in this climate of really demanding or soliciting equitable and inclusive environments from the K-12 space, from the constituents that we serve, making sure that our schools are equitable and inclusive. Sometimes those conversations, depending on what side of the spectrum you're on, can be triggering, can be overwhelming. And so we really have to sort of have that compass. That was a picture of a compass, the last slide that I showed, and really know where we're standing at that moment in time, and being able to successfully navigate that space and place in order to have the capacity to do what we're called to do with fidelity. Z, did you want to add anything to this?
Oh no, you're rolling. I'm excited to keep on going. Yeah.
All right. So stress is high for everyone. In all, aspects of life, or, for our families, children, stress. There was a period of my research that I was really intrigued by childhood stress, and just the impacts of stress for children. But we know as adults, we have stress and anxiety and pressure and strain, all of those things, right? Those are things that I think we have to acknowledge, not in a sense of just staying stuck, right? But sometimes we don't. At least I'll admit, there are things that I've experienced even in my career with the transitions, as Matt had alluded to, just transitioning. I remember transitioning from the classroom into administration. That was a stressful period that I hadn't acknowledged, that I didn't account for how that would look. I didn't pre-plan, right? I didn't pad myself for that transition. And so, on the back end, I kind of had to, put some things in place and amplify therapy time during that season so that I could, rise to the occasion. And so I think as we navigate this school year and are cognizant of the boundaries, right? Knowing when we need to turn off the email. There was a season that I navigated through my career that I could not have the chime for the email, the work email. Like I couldn't even handle that because it was triggering. It was almost traumatic in that state. I just had to turn off, to silence that. My social media accounts, I don't have alarms on those anymore. I used to, but it was extending some of the anxiety that I didn't even realize. Those minor shifts into our lives, into our worlds, can really open up the capacity for us to have some of that self prioritization and self-care. Z, anything you want to add?
No, I think that's important. Just, I think the last presentation we spoke about, there's the eustress and the distress, and there are different types of stress, right? And we have to know what, and again, going back to that wellness wheel, we should know the things. You should be so in tune with oneself. Sometimes we're in tune with everything else around us. We know when that child is having a bad day. We know when that coworker is a little bit off. But do we really take that time to examine ourselves and to check our temperature and to check the things that are upsetting us or causing stress? So it's really, really important to spend that time. If you haven't done it these last 2 years, don't know what you're waiting on, because time waits on no one. And stress, especially bad stress, kills. I'm so sorry to say it like that, but it will destroy you. It will destroy you and everything around you. And who wants to live that type of life where you're constantly aggravated, you're anxious, you're just full of stress. So it's really important to understand what strain and depression and that pressure and that anxiety feels like, and making sure that you have things in place to address these things. And I know for me, I am an emotional eater, so I have to be very intentional with having 6 kids around. I have to be very intentional that I hide the Oreos, that I hide certain things, because I would just eat. So again, it's just making sure that you know what these triggers are. Markenya?
Absolutely. Thank you. And sometimes we don't, right? There are portions of our lives, as we as educators are in the room, the trauma, the childhood trauma, sometimes was not addressed. And so although we've moved on, the trauma, TD Jakes said this once. He said, trouble don't last always, but trauma lingers, And I thought that was so profound, because we can move on from situations physically, but sometimes we're still lingering in those spaces. And so really having therapists, other sources to help process perhaps some of the trauma from the childhood. And you all, in all honesty, there are traumatic things that we experience in our careers. I wish, that I could tell you that I had a straight line through my career, through schooling, the road to the doctorate. Absolutely not. There's some things I experienced along the way that were traumatic, in my educational journey, in my career. And now, COVID did allow me to process things that I just sort of shifted through, right? Because I never planned on being a lifelonger at any one job. So I typically looked for opportunities 5 or 6 years, after being in one space. But sometimes this has happened to me a few times. I'll end a job or a role June 30th, July 1st, I'm in a new role. No transition time, so those are things that I think as we sort of go through the presentation and embark upon a new school year, that we have to really be aware of that. Whoa, that took a lot out of me. Even, the news and all the school shootings and the heightened safety responses and safety plans that we have to now, have in place compared to 20 years ago, right? That those are traumatic events. And so processing those appropriately in a way that will help us move beyond it, right? And so being cognizant of that for our staff as well, our families, and the students that we serve. And so we are going to expedite this a little bit more in the essence of time. So we won't do this exercise. BREATHE, again, that's an acronym, and it stands for, the first letter stands for boundaries, right? So I'm going to zip through this again, but creating those boundaries, right? Boundaries help us distinguish our property so that we can take care of it. And we are our most valuable property, right? And so, again, for me, cutting off those alerts to social media has really helped me be able to just establish that. And you all know what your should know rather what your limits are, right? And where you need space. Sometimes, on those 3-day weekends, not engaging, on that third day, right? As much as we would love to not engage on the weekend, especially administrators know there are things that still just have to be addressed. There are things that we just couldn't finish by 4 o'clock that unfortunately we're still working on at 7, right? But making sure that as simple as at some point in the day you actually ate, right? like you took time to eat something, during the day. There are many days in the life of school that, the day just flows and you're like, oh, wow, it's 2 o'clock, I have not eaten. So keeping those sort of boundaries, parameters, if you will, in place so that you can successfully navigate the role that you're in. So we talked about setting boundaries. I gave some examples of that, and reflecting. Self-reflection is defined as the meditation or serious thought about one's character, actions, and or motives. Again, when you, if you've ever been in a space where you're perhaps pivoting into another role in your career, typically it starts with that reflection, like, okay, I've made an impact in this part of my career. It doesn't feel the same anymore. Is it time to move on? Is it time perhaps just to switch buildings? Is it time to switch roles? Having those constant self reflections will help you along the way. Even this year, classroom teachers reflect a lot on lessons and outcomes that they've had with their students. But as individuals, we often have to have that self-check, that self-reflection, so that we can propel forward. And Z, I will turn it over to you momentarily. Just want to get us through, or go ahead.
You're doing good. I just mentioned, use that wheel, that wellness wheel, as a source of a check-in as well. So continue. Doing
Absolutely. Great. Then evaluate. So reflection, evaluation goes a long way. This is a question that I find myself asking in increments. Who am I now? 5, 10, 15 years into the profession, whatever number you want to plug in there, whatever time frame you want to plug in. But who are you now? Because as we mature and grow in age, we are different people. The educator I was when I first started in the profession, I'm different. I've had different perspectives. My passions may have not changed, but perhaps they've shifted right into maybe I'm focused on just one part of that passion, right? And not I remember getting through the dissertation phase and all of that. My chair told me, because I had all these ideas and avenues for research. She said that the best dissertation is a finished dissertation. Like, that's good. Save the world after you finish school, and so that sometimes we have to look at, there are things that we'll have to cut off, things that we'll have to amplify, but making sure that we evaluate. So that's the E in breathe. Acknowledge. We spent some time earlier talking about acknowledging where we are, who we are, how we are in this moment of time, realizing that COVID is real, inflation is real, gas prices are still $5 or more, pension conversations that my mom was telling me Sunday, about there may not be any Social Security when you get to retirement age, so those are constant conversations that we hear, and those are things that we have to acknowledge, and of course plan for accordingly, but not get overwhelmed by it. But there's some acknowledgement that at some point those are things that we may have to actually address. Healthcare, again, these are topics that are rather reoccurring. The T stands for thankful, right? To express gratitude. What am I thankful for today? There are a lot of things that we perhaps cannot be thankful for. There are things that we wish we could change, especially on days where there's a staff shortage, where attendance is horrible, other things that happen in the lives of schools, right? There are a lot of things to complain about. But today, what am I thankful for just today? And sometimes just asking yourself that question will really shift the energy, which is the E, energize, into the space and place that you are in. Hope. A feeling of expectation. What are you hoping for? There's a protocol that I love to do, even with my students, the pre-service teachers, but with the staff, I've done it many times in many settings and places, but there's a protocol called hope and fears. One side you list your hopes, one side you list your fears, right? And typically people will list their fears far quicker than their hopes. And so as we navigate this year, let's try to prioritize our hope. Are we just hopeful or expecting the 3-day weekend, right? The winter break? Some people perhaps are already counting down the days until their fall or winter break, right? And if that's what gives you strength, then do it. Use the things that strengthen you to really propel you forward, so that you can have the longevity, the endurance that's needed. And the last letter, E, Energize, right? What gives you energy? Connecting to people, things, and places that energize you. But as Z said, making sure it's not overstimulating you, because that can be, a stress too, right? Sometimes we're in environments that it's too much, right? And we don't even realize that, wow, okay, I have an open door policy, but wow, I might need to narrow the door just a little bit, so that I am not exhausted. Introverts often get energy from being alone. They do. Extroverts get energized from being around people. And so really just knowing where we are on that spectrum and how do you recharge. So asking yourself those questions are very, very critical. And I know we're sort of speeding through it in the essence of time, but we are more than happy to engage with you all offline outside of this space as well, to support where you are and to help you get through this school year. So Z, I'll turn it over to you. I've said a lot in a little bit of time, but I'll let you sort of put a bow on it and bring us home.
Oh, thank you. I'm just like, oh my goodness, where does time go? And that is the whole essence of this, right? Time waits on no one. It waits on no one. So that's why you have to get your act together and you have to mind your business. Because we stop minding, and nothing's wrong with taking care of everyone else. The husband, the children, the dog, the team. Yes, that is nice, but you cannot help others without helping yourself first. So, and it even starts with being present. So I love this slide because it talks about, your body is present, but is your mind present? Right? We're constantly racing. It's like this. I used to run track. I used to coach track. So I know a little, something about racing. But our mind is constantly racing. Are you present? Do you practice being present regularly? Right? This world is such an overwhelming place. So much going on. Sometimes we don't know if we're going or we're coming. Whether you're a teacher, a parent, a mother, a caregiver, whatever that is. And this brings us to the next slide. Okay, we'll keep on going. The mindfulness and awareness. I'm sure you've heard these terms before, but do you really, really know what it means? And if you do know what it means, are you practicing it? Continue. Okay, so mindfulness versus awareness. And we know, hopefully you do know this, and this is a recap, but mindfulness is about introspection. It really looks at your thought process, right? Being present, being here, not over there. Mindfulness lies in the pattern of thinking. What are you thinking now? What type of thoughts are you thinking now? Awareness is about actually living those things out, so the practicality of it. So we'll keep on going. So maybe you've heard this. I'm sure you've heard this. Is your mind full or are you mindful? What is it? And this might be something that you may have to put up in your office. Okay, where am I? So sometimes you need these visuals. Is my mind full of everything else? Or am I mindful? Am I present? Am I here? I can't worry about tomorrow. Sometimes it would be nice to be like the flowers and the birds. They don't care about everything else. I feel as if they're so present, right? You're like, see, of course they're present. They don't have all the things to worry about. But maybe we could learn from nature and the birds, right? So that's what's coming to my mind. Mindful or mindful? So again, you have to be intentional with thinking in the present and not always attempting to race and to I feel as if we're doing that now because of time, but it's like, oh my gosh, but that's okay. I think you all grasp the concept. So even right now, mindfulness again, being fully present, and just being aware. So now we'll just move on to the mindfulness activity because of the time. So number one, we did that in the beginning, just looking at the breathing, being intentional. I took the sign down, but I had a sign here that said, don't forget to breathe. You know, you might need to put that in your office where you're just intentionally pausing and taking a breath. Okay, I saw that email. I'm not going to respond. I'm going to take a breath. Okay, also, we spoke about the self check in. You know, how am I feeling? Should I wait to respond to that email maybe 30 minutes from now? You know, check in, check in. We're always checking in with everyone else. Take that time to be intentional and purposeful about checking in with yourself. Have you made your doctor's appointment? Have you gotten your pap smear? I'm just, you know, are you taking care of yourself, woman? Are you taking care of yourself, men? Just making sure you're checking in. Okay, journaling. I don't know what you may do to even reflect. Journaling is a good tool that you could use. You can journal. For me, I like traveling. I like going different places. I like hiking. I don't know what a self-reflection time may look like for you, but you need to find it and be intentional about that. Meditation, you know, it might be listening to music, it might be going to the river and just sitting there. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's prayer time. Whatever that is, you have to be intentional about meditating on good things, not just any old thing. So you don't want to I believe I heard this once, you know, you when you worry, that's when you're meditating on the wrong things. But the type of meditation that we're talking about is the meditation that kind of calms you down. So also the affirmations. What are you saying regularly to yourself? You should have some affirmations that you say regularly, daily. That will definitely help. Even using a planner, that's important. The power of visualization, I spoke about that. Making sure that you have something in your office to remind you to check in on a regular basis. Also, just doing a body scan. And all of that happens by just being present. Looking at the time, keep going. We know the benefits of mindfulness. Your stress reduces, it helps with your immune function, it helps with your overall well-being. If you are intentional and mindful, you're better at home, you're better at work, you're better for you, you're better for you. So that is very important. Continue. Here are some other examples on how to reframe the negative inner dialogue that we have with ourselves. Instead of saying, I'm not good enough, I am worthy. Throughout the day, I am enough, I am worthy, I am enough. You know, I am beautiful, I can do all things, I can do this, right? So the same things we preach at home to our children, the same thing we preach to our staff, these are the things we need to be preaching to ourselves, okay? And lastly, as we get ready to close, the ABCs of life. Maybe you've heard of this. You know, my kids just started tennis, and the coach started to talk to them about the ABCs of life on and off the court. We all know how to be agile. Agility is so important. We have been agile, and we continue to be agile, being able to move and to pivot when necessary. And the balance piece. And when you think of balance, I don't want you to think about, for me, as a mother of 6, there's no such thing as balance. I want you to think in terms of creating harmony. Harmony. What can you do in your life on a regular basis that causes peace? And just like a flow of things. And the C, lastly, is that control. You cannot control everyone else, but you can control you. You can't control anyone else's emotions, but you can control you. So control the things that you can and let go of the things you cannot. So with that, do not forget to breathe.
Thank you, Z, so much for taking us through that. And we'll just sort of end with this poem or statement, you know, that your life matters, your work matters, and your leisure matter. No matter what challenges we face, if we do not breathe, we will suffocate. If we sit still in disappointment for too long, we may end up forfeiting a life that is worth living. The other week, I just briefly sort of glanced at an article, but it was saying just the suicide data, really spiked within the last 3 years, and that range of 17 to about 35-year-olds is the climax of the data, which was just so disheartening, right? And so we all have a purpose for being here, and so as long as we're doing the self check-ins, the self-care, the evaluating, setting the boundaries, we will be able to breathe a little longer, and so that we can be the best versions of ourselves. And so we thank you all for being here. Here's we will engage in Q&A per Arlen's directive, but our contact information, if you do want to reach out to us, if there's perhaps a portion of this that might even be worthwhile for your staff, feel free to connect with us. Both of us are consultants. I still consult with many of the districts here in Illinois. So feel free to reach out to us, and we don't mind doing the extended version of this for your staff, your team, just to help all of us, be a little bit more grounded, a little bit more just focused and well-rounded for the year ahead. So thank you all for being here with us. We went about a few minutes over, but we appreciate you all being here, and we'll turn it back over to Arlen.
Thank you, Z. Thank you, Markenya, for this wonderful presentation. Great strategies for how to better take care of ourselves and to breathe. If anybody has any questions, feel free to raise your hand using the toolbar at the bottom, and I can unmute your microphone. Or, of course, you can type them into the chat, sending it either to everyone or to the hosts and panelists. We will see those coming in. There's also the Q&A box. You can use that if you don't want other people to see your question. But we do have we have them for another minute or so here to answer any follow-up questions or any comments that you would like to share. Thank you, panelists, and thank you, participants as well, for joining this webinar. And just as a reminder, this has been recorded, and I will be sharing the recording out with you and all registrants probably tomorrow. We'll be able to get that. Great question from Ann. Is Breathe Part 1 available on the ELN site? Yes. I will send a link to everyone to watch the recording for Part 1 as well. You can find it in our archived recordings on the Ed Leaders Network site, but I will send out a direct link so that people have both parts of this recording to make the most of it. So thank you. And Dr. Williams just posted her email address into the chat if you'd like to follow up. And Z, thank you for sharing your website as well. Appreciate that. And I don't see any hands in the air, so I don't think we've got anybody ready to ask a question on the mic. Any questions in the chat? Yes, thank you so much, Stephen, for your attendance and participation as well.
Right. So don't forget to breathe. Don't forget to breathe.
That's right. #1 message to take away. I'm going to stop the recording now, and we can close out the session.